This week, Montreal Canadiens GM Kent Hughes met with the media for his mid-season check-in. On today's video, I will give you my 5 takeaways from that press conference. Now that we have passed the midway mark on the 2022-2023 NHL season, it's time for those mid-season status reports and check-ins. And that's exactly what Kent Hughes did this week, meeting with members of the media out at Brassard. He had a lot to say, covered a lot of topics, and today I have 5 takeaways from that press conference that I'd love to talk to you about. Number 1, it is hard to deny that one of the most dynamic and exciting players to watch on the Montreal Canadiens roster so far this season has been none other than Cole Caufield. It's really exciting to watch and kind of speculate as to how many goals he's actually going to net this year. He's looking much more like that fantastic highlight reel player that we saw from him when he was playing in the NCAA. And so, of course, the topic on everyone's mind is, when is Cole Caufield going to sign a contract extension, a new contract? Kent Hughes did talk about that this week, and I have to say that I agree with the things that he said. Contracts and new contracts and negotiations are always something that people like to speculate about. Some people get a little nervous if a big player's new contract isn't signed either early on in the season in their final year or at least by the midway point. I'm not sweating this one. Cole Caufield is obviously part of the Montreal Canadiens' future. Kent Hughes even said, we want Cole to be here long term, and that he believes that Caufield wants to be with the Canadiens long term. And why wouldn't he? The fans adore him in Montreal. The media adores him in Montreal. Life's pretty good in Montreal for Cole Caufield, and I don't see an issue with this contract being done. In terms of transparency, Kent Hughes did address that, and he said, quote, "My experience as an agent was that some negotiations happen very fast and others take a long time. That doesn't mean that there are problems necessarily in the negotiations. There could be a lot of things involved. But if it's completely open to everyone, though, there could be a lot of speculation that can become a distraction to the players." I agree with him there. He says a little bit later, once a contract, the ink is dry on a contract, then he's happy to answer questions about negotiations and what went into the process. Of course, there's going to be talk between Cole's agent and the Canadiens organization and even Caufield himself. All of that is going to come in due time. I don't think fans have anything to worry about here, and I think that also Cole Caufield is going to get a pretty nice payday when that contract comes around. Number 2 is Juraj Slafkovsky. Basically, Juraj Slafkovsky's season is, for all intents and purposes, it's over. He's going to be out for about 3 months with a lower body injury that they say will not require surgery. Well, you do the math. It's the middle of January, so middle of February, middle of March, middle of April. Slafkovsky may have played his last game in his rookie season. That's yet to be seen, depending on his rehab progression. It's an unfortunate situation for Juraj Slafkovsky. Kent Hughes still was kind of on the fence and not very definitive as to whether or not Slafkovsky should have been sent down to Laval before now to work on his game and develop. Slafkovsky is one of those instances where he was a very dynamic player in Europe. Making the adjustment to the NHL and the North American game has not been an easy road for him, and that's certainly okay. I do agree with Kent Hughes when he said every player's development path looks different, and that is absolutely 100% true. Kent Hughes says, quote, "Slav has to learn how to define his game. He has a natural talent. I think everyone sees it. He has a unique physical stature too, and he's very strong. For him, it's going to take realizing and understanding which parts of his game he has to develop and add to his game for him to become the best player he can be." In half a season, that wasn't happening in Montreal. And so for me, I would have liked to have seen perhaps maybe a month ago, Juraj Slafkovsky go down to Laval with instruction from Kent Hughes and the development staff for the Montreal Canadiens, giving JF Uhl and his staff instruction on, here's how exactly we want you to play him. Here are exactly the things we want you to work on with him. and then bring him back up again and see if that doesn't make a difference, and let him dominate a bit in the AHL. Let him start scoring goals if he's able to do that at the AHL level. It's unfortunate that now development is going to come to a screeching halt for Juraj Slafkovsky, since he's going to be out for the next 3 months, and it's going to really rest on what now he does in the summertime and what they choose to do with him for his sophomore season. Number 3 is Martin St. Louis and his coaching staff. It was brought to Kent Hughes in this press conference about the inexperience of the coaching staff. And it was interesting to me that Kent Hughes talked about how different coaches need to have different strengths at different times. And so he admitted, no, St. Louis and the rest of his coaching staff, they can't stand side by side with other NHL coaches in terms of their coaching experience. But he says, but they have a lot of playing experience. And so kind of for me, the writing on the wall there was, so that works in a season where you've got a lot of young players who need to learn how to play the game, to kind of mentor young players and teach them kind of the ropes of playing in the NHL. However, there's going to be a learning curve when the development and the rebuild is over and the Canadiens actually need to perform as a team and put up points night in and night out. That's going to take a different kind of coaching talent. Whether or not that's going to be Marty St. Louis and his staff will be able to learn how to do that in the same amount of time as the players develop, we have yet to be seen. Kent Hughes did say, that it's interesting that he said Marty St. Louis and his staff ultimately make the calls on the ice, but that doesn't mean that after a game, Kent Hughes and company won't point out things that they're seeing that just aren't working. So an interesting kind of system that they've got working with a coaching staff that's also learning on the job as well. And it will be fascinating to see how that all kind of comes together after this season. Number 4, Samuel Montembeault. Goaltending has become a very weak position in the Montreal Canadiens organization all of a sudden. And if there was one area that I disagreed with Kent Hughes, it was his absolute unwavering support of Sam Montembeault. This is not to criticize Sam Montembeault and his ability. What I don't agree with is that Sam Montembeault is a building block for the future of the Montreal Canadiens. Sam Montembeault is at least playing confidently, and he is doing an admirable job of coming in with Jake Allen also injured and now essentially being the starting goaltender because Caden Primo is not ready for the NHL. However, for me, Kent Hughes literally said, we want to keep him. He's having a good stretch right now, and ends it with Sam definitely isn't going anywhere. That's where I have a problem. If there is a team out there before the trade deadline that needs a backup goaltender, and they're willing to package some pretty nice pieces together to get a package from you of maybe Sam Montembeault and a prospect or something like that, you take that all day long. That is going to be a position the Canadiens are going to have to address. Sam Montembeault for the long term, however, I just don't see that happening. And number 5, can I just say, hallelujah, Kent Hughes talked about Kirby Dock is definitely a center. And that should not even be up for debate. Yes, he has filled a hole on the wing on the first line with Suzuki and Caufield, but that is not where anyone should be thinking he should stay. We saw him back at center the other night. He looked good there. He looked comfortable there. And, hopefully we're going to see more of Kirby Dock at center moving forward. I, however, was very relieved to hear that Kent Hughes also sees Kirby Dock as a center moving forward. I mentioned in the last segment that there was a new injury update for the Canadiens. The big piece, of course, is that Juraj Slafkovsky is going to be out for about 3 months. However, Jonathan Drouin and Yoel Armia both out with upper body injuries until the All-Star break. Jake Allen continues to be out. They said about a week, a minimum of a week. The Laval Rocket have sent Joe Verbetic back to the Trois-Rivières Lions. Maybe that's just for him to get some game action action in, and they'll call him back up if Jake Allen's not ready. But it seems that Jake Allen is getting close. Also, however, Jake Evans with that lower body injury, we saw what happened with the player coming down on his leg. He was in a lot of pain. Doesn't require surgery, but he's going to be out for 8 to 10 weeks. The injury list for the Canadiens is getting longer and longer and longer and longer. So what do I hope is going to happen at this point in the season? Development. Keep Jesse Ylönen up. He has looked very strong in his couple of games. Keep Justin Barron up. He is the 2 assists the other night, looking exceptional, looking very comfortable. And for that matter, if you need the forward, keep Raphael Harvey-Pinard up. Let him play on the 4th line. While I don't believe that Raphael Harvey-Pinard is necessarily going to be a piece of the NHL puzzle in the next couple of years, he is right on the cusp. So give him a stretch of time and let's see what he really can do. You know, he's small, he's not the best skater, but he does get in the dirty areas, he gets in the corners, he drives the net, and he can make things happen. Just give the young guys as much space as they need to just get some experience. Finally today, the Laval Rocket is on a 2-game win streak, believe it or not. After losing 2 games last week, they put up a big home win against the Cleveland Monsters, Alex Belzile scoring his first career hat trick. And then in Rochester on the road on Wednesday night, they won another big one again. So they're on a 2-game win streak, despite the fact that they are riding a complete bare bones roster. The emergency recalls of Harvey-Pinard and Rem Pitlick mean that there are no more healthy scratches available on the roster. Every forward and every defenseman that JF Uhl has at his disposal are currently playing in the lineup. So if things don't change, we expect to see some additional call-ups from the Trois-Rivières Lions of the ECHL. Laval, like I said, 2 back-to-back wins, despite the fact that they are icing a very heavily ECHL lineup. And we'll see if that continues with a tough schedule ahead this week when they welcome the Hershey Bears and the Toronto Marlies, kind of top of the league and top of the division in respectively, to Place Belle and Laval this weekend. We'll see if they can keep the wins going. Lots of Montreal Canadiens hockey still left to come this week. We'll see how the young guns do in those games. And hey, if you missed last week's episode where I went in depth about Jesse Ylönen and the play and season he's had to earn him the recall that he got last week, and how to correctly pronounce his name, you'll want to check that out right here and then meet me back again next week for another episode of Habs Hockey Report.